The real reason the Patriots knew Tom Brady was going to be great, one of the biggest questions I've ever had in sports, or one of the longest lasting questions I've had, is how did the Patriots know? How did the Patriots do this? How did they find Tom Brady? How did they draft this guy in the 7th round, and then he end up being who he is? It's crazy. The development of Tom Brady to the levels that he got with the start that he had is insane. It really is. I mean, it's one thing to get the chance, to get the opportunity, once Bledsoe got hurt and then Brady comes in and all of that. That's one thing. But then to keep developing, keep getting better, completely change the quarterback position, completely change the NFL, rewrite history, put such a gap between you and other greats, the Joe Montanas of the world, the Dan Marinos of the world, the Terry Bradshaws of the world, even the Peyton Mannings and Aaron Rodgers and players like that to come later. But to put such a gap between you, I mean, Brady really, like Michael Jordan, I've said before, Tom Brady to football is bigger and better than Michael Jordan was in basketball. And Michael Jordan was a top pick. Like Michael Jordan was the 3rd overall pick. So people expected big things out of him. He was good at North Carolina. Brady was the opposite. So it is a question mark. Now, who are we talking with here? It's Julian Edelman. His guest, Ernie Adams, former coach, front office, assistant, executive, everything you can possibly do with the New England Patriots. He was a college friend, I believe, of Bill Belichick. He just knows ball, studied ball, obsessed with ball, didn't play ball, which a lot of people have a problem with. A lot of people think you have to play junior high school JV football to have a opinion on the NFL or have an opinion on football. But he's going to tell us what the Patriots saw in those early days.
Remember the scouting process when you guys were scouting Brady?
Really, it was, the number one.
I mean, look, if you told me to draw a picture of a guy who knows ball, this is it. Dude is somehow man-spreading, gooch on back of my dome. I respect it. The shirt, the posture, everything about this. This guy knows ball. This guy understands the X's and O's and what it takes. This is what you want to see. Right here. I mean, this is a masterpiece. Look at I can't wait to hear what he's got to say.
One thing you want
It looks like Wilford Brimley. Y'all remember Wilford Brimley? Wilford Brimley was the face of diabetes whenever, like in the mid-'90s, he was always on the commercials. Sidebar, worst possible thing to be the face of is diabetes. But Wilford Brimley was that. I'm not sure. I'm sure I don't know if he's still among us. This was 30 years ago. Wilford Brimley was the face of diabetes. So I'm guessing here. But if he is among us, much respect to Wilford Brimley. And if he is not, then may God rest his soul.
to see a football player is, what does he do in the games? I mean, it's, it's kind of a bottom line business. And when you get somebody who goes in and plays well in the games, that's what gets your attention. And we had, one person.
That is an interesting thing. And it sounds so simple. And there's so many times I watch somebody and it's like, oh, this hyped up prospect, this hyped up this hyped up that. And a lot of times people have a problem because I'm very quick to dismiss players or to anoint players or whatever. And I, like Bryce Young, I've done it with this past year, where I can hear all the hype. I can hear all the accolades and the he's got this and he's got that and he did this in college and he can do this and the offensive line can do that. And then I watch him in the games and I'm like, man, this guy sucks. Like, this guy cannot do it. He physically can't do it. There's something missing. I can see it. Or the opposite, where you watch somebody play and you're like, this guy's awesome. This guy is sweet. Like, this guy can ball. This guy is good. It's like, oh, well, he came from 7th round pick. Oh, he came from Western Oregon Tech. I was like, I don't care. This guy can let it rip. He can sling it. Like, I can see it with my own eyes. At this point, he's right. Like, at a certain point, it matters what you're doing on the field. It doesn't matter what your 40 is, what your vertical is, your hand size, what school you came from, any of that stuff. It matters what you can do on the field.
You never knew. Great guy, Dick Rabine, was our quarterback coach, who unfortunately died during training camp in 2001.
R.I.P.
Yeah, got on a treadmill and had had a heart issue, and he died. But you don't try to make it too complicated. If a guy goes in the game against good competition and plays well, that is what we're trying to do. It's not about the combine stuff, which is important, but it's really, what does the guy do when he gets on the field against good competition? And so you get Brady, hey, have a great bowl game against Alabama. I mean, and play well when you're in there. There's a lot of things as a player you can't control, but what you can control is what you actually do when you get out on the field.
Yeah, we always used to talk about that. When did you know he was a killer?
When I first
Brady, players like Brady, Kobe Bryant, all like Tiger Woods, they are different. They are straight up different people. They kind of have to be different. You don't reach that level. You don't even say what you want about them, but like Kanye West of the world, the people have pushed themselves to a certain level, to a certain extent, and who can break through boundaries, whether it's personal or on a football field or a golf course or whatever it is. They're wired so differently. I would assume Tom Brady, you would know very early on, like, okay, this guy's got something. He ticks a little different here.
Tom's rookie year in 2000, he was like he was like the third string quarterback, and he was not going to get in the game. I mean, unless if you have two guys get injured in the same game, he can get in, but it wasn't going to happen. And after practice, he would go grab our young rookie tight end, Chris Eitzman, and take him over on the side and make Chris run patterns for him. But it wasn't just running patterns. Tom wanted to call the play. It's 3rd and 6. All right, Eitz, this is the play we're going to run. Call it out, because Tom wanted to put himself through the situation. Here's the way I'm going to call the play in this situation. It's not just let's just go run around, play catch.
This is something else I always talk about too. Is like what we don't see as fans, and I always remind people like Trey Lance. Like when Trey Lance got traded from the 49ers, people were like, "We've only seen him throw 13 passes. How do you know how good he is?" It's like, guys, these teams are spending hours upon hours upon hours upon hours with these guys. They see them on the practice field, in training camp, during scrimmages, studying film, in the weight room, with their teammates, all that. They see all that. All that factors in. All that plays in. Like this right here. This is something no one would know happened besides the training camp or besides the coaches at training camp and the players there. Like no one would know this happened. But this is the first thing this cat remembers. The first thing he wants to talk about. Doesn't talk about the Super Bowls, doesn't talk about the games, doesn't talk about once he got in, doesn't talk about the playoffs. He talks about after practice on the sidelines with a backup 3rd-string tight end running routes and calling plays. This is what we don't see. So whenever players get dismissed or whenever players don't get a chance, and it's the wonder of like, oh man, if only they would have got a chance. You got to remember, they do get a chance. They get a chance for hours and hours and hours and hours, even if they don't play in the game. So I always try and make sure we remember this, that you have to look beyond what's happening in the regular season.
We're actually thinking a game, thinking situations. And I always figured if a player's going to stay out late after practice, somebody should, honor him by going over and watching. So I'm just standing watching this. This guy, he's really trying to get ready to play, even though he has no chance.
I love that rule, by the way. I love what he just said. If a player is going to stay after practice, a coach should stay with him. A coach should, reciprocate that. If he's going to stay, I should watch him and give him that opportunity. I love that mindset.
Chance of playing this week. And, of course, Tom's the guy. Yeah, if you wanted to get in the right stance, how do you get in the right stance? You practice it in front of the mirror. You just do, being obsessive compulsive can get you in trouble sometimes, but you can also lead to great results.
Yeah.
And that's the way I kind of look at that. Tom is the ultimate obsessive compulsive, among players, because he's not, Tom Brady didn't just drop out of the sky a Hall of Fame quarterback. He made himself into a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yep.
And
that's kind of the craziest thing. Like my question to open this video was, how the hell did Tom Brady do it? And that answer is almost the hardest answer to hear. it's almost the hardest to understand of like, well, he actually just practiced and made himself like that. It's like, why? How? If he could do that, why can't all these other guys do it? Why? Even the guys who had the determination, who had the dedication, who had the physical skills, like a Peyton Manning. Like, I'm sure Peyton Manning put in some serious time. I'm sure Peyton Manning put in every opportunity he had to practice, he did. I'm sure he was very to the letter. I'm sure he was a perfect professional. But he didn't push himself to the level of Tom, or he did not achieve what Tom Brady did. No one has. No one has ever. So you're telling me that Tom Brady just willed himself to that level? That's wild. It really is. It's easier to accept and easier to understand. Just like, oh, he must have had this God-given ability and then he just needed the opportunity. But he's telling you that's not really the case. He needed the opportunity. He did have some physical skills and all that, but he had to teach himself, push. He had to do all that to reach the levels that we saw, which is crazy. I mean, it really is. And I mean, I think, I keep talking about Kobe and Michael Jordan, but Kobe, there was all the stories of him practicing. There was all the stories of him staying hours after the game shooting, or coming in early and shooting, or there's the pictures of him and videos of him with a cast on in his pajamas shooting. It's like there is a different level to those kind of players and that kind of obsessive compulsive that will to be great.
People would tell me at the draft, yeah, I work hard as Brady. Hey, you're full of shit. You have no idea what you're talking about. And that's the
100% correct. I mean, I got there. He already had 3 Super Bowls, and he was still flying in a coach week 11 to work on his little fundamentals after a practice.
Hey, but you know what?
That was when he was a 4. That's what people don't see.
They don't see. They don't understand. And that was kind of like when I was talking about being impressed with Peyton Manning warming up before the game. I mean, when it's football now, I mean, it's dead ass serious, 100% every time. Yeah, there's no, you don't take any plays off in practice.
He never did.
Never did. And you know what? He would if you ran him around first time hey Jules, we really want to do it this way, and then he expects you to get it right that second time. Right. Hey, if you might not quite understand the first time, that's not a problem. Screwing up after he explained it to you, that's a problem.
I was just listening to a Kanye West interview. That's why I keep bringing him up. But he was talking about when he was like, grinding early on in his career and he was trying to be a producer or whatever. And he was talking about like how hard he had to work. And he was saying that if you weren't willing to put in 20 hours or whatever every single day to grind and to do this, there wasn't any going to dinner. There wasn't any going out. There wasn't any vacation. There wasn't any spending time with your family. There wasn't any girlfriends. There wasn't any of that. Like, that's the bare minimum. Like that's just gets you into the door. That's just the cover cost. Then you have to go beyond that. Same with like what he's talking about with Brady. It wasn't good enough to be, to practice the level he was practicing and have the discipline he had. You also had to eat right, the nutrition. You had to get the coaches in. You had to do extra. You had to push your teammates. You had to do all that. That's just paying the entry. And then you see these players like Brady and Kobe and whoever else were able to go beyond that and push it even further. And their discipline or whatever, their obsession and passion and all that allowed them to be great. But it's just crazy. And I'm sure it's like that in every walk of life. I mean, I'm sure like, if you asked, whoever, the Beatles or something, like, how much did y'all practice? It's like, I don't know, like 12 hours a day. Like, I'm sure if you heard what it took, like Steph Curry, how many threes did you shoot? How long do you just do shoot around when you were at Davidson? How often did you have a basketball in your hand? I'm sure the answers to those questions would blow your mind. Even authors and artists and stuff like that. It's just, that has always fascinated me, of the people who are able to push the boundaries of themselves and an industry or a sport or whatever it might be.
Make a mistake, you just can't make the same mistake twice.
Right.
And with him, I was a punching bag for him because the more success that we had, he could never really get on guys as hard as he wanted to because they've been watching him since before they were born. You know what I mean? So it got to a point where it was good to see him do that.
Good stuff. I mean, this guy, I could listen to this cat for hours and days and days. This guy just knows ball, understands ball. Man, I mean, this is a treasure trove of knowledge right here. I mean, if anybody, come on. I keep saying it, but let's get the talking heads off ESPN. Enough with Rex Ryan. Can we bring this guy in? Like enough with some of the talking heads we got to listen to. Let's bring this fella in and just let him go. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this interesting conversation. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.